Hello, everyone. It is Indira Allen Stevens from the Northern Ages newspaper, and today we are here with Yaming Lin, who is a 27-year-old food ethnographer that lives in New York City. As a food ethnographer, he explores the connection between people, food, and culture by sharing a meal with others. His intention is to build awareness around everyone's uniqueness, but also show how we all share cornerstone memories around food. He is currently working on a cookbook that is inspired by all the people he's met, and you can join the waitlist, which will be linked in the description down below. Hello, Yumi.
Good to meet you. How's it going?
It's going really good, and I'm just so happy to have you here because I watched one of your videos, and it was actually one of my pick-me-ups when I was having a rough day, and everything just seems to be going to heck in a handbasket. And I happen to find your page, and there you are, just feeding the people of New York and giving them a little slice of home, and it just made my heart just smile. So thank you so much.
Wow, it's really powerful to hear that. And I think when I first started the project, I wasn't sure how people would react or if people would even watch it. And just to hear you say that just warms my heart. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really appreciate kind people and people going out of their way to do things for others. So just seeing you do these acts of kindness, it motivated me like, okay, what else can I do to do these acts of kindness? Because I'm certain you get an endorphin rush at the end, like when you bring them back the plate and you just see their reaction to the food and stuff like that. But watching it, you almost get an endorphin rush. Like, I did something good today too. Like, that's how it feels.
Wait, that's incredible. Yeah, it's pretty powerful when the person who has no idea like who I am and like the food that I think they just have low expectations. So if you watch the video, they're usually just like, they have that like shocked face of, wow, they actually cooked something that looks kind of good. And it is a huge endorphin rush, and it's interesting to hear you say that when you watch it, you also get one. And I think I try to film in first person so that I take the audience along for the journey of interviewing someone and cooking the food and delivering it to them. So I'm really glad that you experienced that as well.
Yeah, no, and people, when you do it, people are really shocked. Like, honestly, I was like, how bold of you to be doing this in New York? Because, I mean, like, in New York, people don't usually talk to people or try to stop to talk to people on the street. So I was like, this is kind of bold here.
Thank you.
But you describe yourself as a food ethnographer.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. It's food ethnographer.
Ethnographer.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, so you describe yourself as a food ethnographer. What does that mean?
Sure. So ethnography is a subcategory of this academic study called anthropology. So anthropology studies people through the lens of religion, society, economics, finance, whereas ethnography studies it from a social perspective only. And I specialize in food ethnography, which is really the study of people, food, and the connection between the two. So I try to do this through interviews and through cooking for people and trying to understand the question I'm trying to understand right now is how food is connected and tied to people's childhood and people's memories, and how across cultures, what are the common foods that bring that to light.
And I feel like you definitely do achieve that with your videos. Oh my God. Like one of my favorite videos that you did was there was a Dominican guy with a snake around his neck, and you were saying that you were really scared. And because that was a big snake, and asked you for some Dominican oxtails. And first of all, I didn't even know that there were Dominican oxtails like that.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, I was just like, I thought this was like a Jamaican kind of thing, because usually when I hear oxtails, I think of, oh, like that's Jamaican food.
Yeah.
But yeah, just watching you go back, make that, like, yeah, just watching you go back and make that, like, what was your process of, man, I'm jumping ahead, I know I am, but what is your process for studying and doing your research to make these dishes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think for all the dishes, it's a little bit different. So for example, the oxtail stew, the way that I researched that was, one, I actually asked the guy. You don't see this on camera, but I asked Manny, the person I interviewed, how he remembered it essentially, and what his spice level was, and if he's allergic to anything. So he actually gave me kind of like some key flavors and spices that he remembered his family making it. And so I'd take that, and then I do research on YouTube. I'd pull in different recipes, but all of it is just really to try to understand the kind of like the frame of like what the food should taste and feel like. And then everything else as you cook, I like to tend to cook intuitively, where I try not to follow the recipe, to the exact dot, but I like to make sure that I taste as I go along, as I build the different flavors out. And so I would say half of it is research, and then the other half is intuition. And how I research, it's asking the person that I interview, but also doing online research. There is a funny story where if you watch the Brazilian moqueca story, I had to find this really obscure recipe called dente, and it's basically a stew, and dente is like red palm oil, which is common in Brazilian and African cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to search all over New York to find this ingredient. And I only found it on the bodega, which is like a small Brazilian shop on the 8th floor of a huge New York apartment skyscraper building. So what was really interesting about the story was I actually went to the shop owner, and I asked her where this ingredient was. And so she was like, "You're making a moqueca, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." And so she actually gave me her childhood recipe of what I was trying to make. And so the recipes come from a bunch of places, and I think that's what makes it special.
But that's really interesting. You meet so many people along your journey as you cultivate these dishes to give people a taste of like their homeland, or just cultural dishes. Like, you must have made like a lot of connections, just kind of like walking around downtown New York. Like, I'm certain you've got a lot of stories about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good point. And before I started this project, something about me is that I just moved to New York from Florida, and I didn't really have community in New York. And so one thing that I was personally also trying to do was to build community. And I think through this project, I was able to create space for me to explore what that means. And I've met so many really incredible, shopkeepers, really incredible New Yorkers all throughout, and get that sense of community as someone who just moved to the city.
That's amazing. I actually am living in Florida currently, but I'm in Connecticut at the moment, just traveling and stuff like that. But you talked about building community in New York, and I think that's really important. A lot of people during COVID times are looking to really build a community. Did you move to New York with your family?
No, it's actually just me. So I moved to Florida because, or I moved to New York because the pandemic was over, and I wanted to. It's always been a childhood dream of mine to live in a bigger city, and I was only in Florida temporarily because my family owns a restaurant, and during the pandemic, COVID wasn't friendly to the restaurant industry. And so I went back and helped my parents, get a website and figure out how to do online ordering. And now that they're in a good place, I decided to kind of go out and do my own thing. And that's how I ended up in New York.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I can tell it's like peeling back the layers of the onion, because I can tell you just have a lot to say. But how did you begin your journey as a food ethnographer on TikTok?
So I think my story of how I got started on TikTok really resonated with yours, actually, because during the pandemic, it was really challenging. We're all locked up at home, and for me, TikTok was a huge outlet of seeing other people's lives, and it allowed me to leave home without actually physically leaving home, and gave me a lot of benefits from a mental health perspective, which sounds kind of ironic. But I would say I started it because I also wanted to give back to the TikTok community. I had always been someone who viewed these videos, but now I wanted to be someone who created them. And then I found that it was a really powerful platform to reach people and to create a digital community for people to understand and to discover new foods and new cultures, and to kind of bring people together.
And were you a food ethnographer before you got on TikTok?
It's interesting because I think you can see food ethnography as someone who has a career in it, but for me, it's I think trying to understand different cultures and different people's food has always been a passion of mine. And so I think part of the process of being on TikTok, I kind of wanted to discover what my, I guess, digital voice or brand looks like, if that makes sense. So I think it was through me being on TikTok, I kind of just labeled myself as a food ethnographer, whereas before I was more just curious about it and learning it for my own sake, versus I think now I'm learning it for my own sake, but also creating content to create dialogue about what food ethnography is, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Watching your content made me more strategic about how I get to know other cultures, and maybe more aware of how I like what things that I really enjoyed when I experienced other cultures. I had the chance to live in Australia for 2 years, and
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. And the food is like the food wasn't really the greatest, but food is something that I go for. Music is also another thing that I go for, but they were playing a lot of American music. And the funny thing is they have a lot of African population over there. And so I got to really know the African population over there a lot more. And it was weird because it was like a homecoming in Australia for me. And they were feeding me African foods, and it was so good. And they were playing African music and just dancing and stuff like that. And so I realized that how I really like to enjoy other cultures is to learn their dances and eat their foods. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's incredible. It almost sounds like you discovered parts of yourself also through other people's cultures and lenses.
I definitely discovered other parts of myself. It made me more confident in who I am, and just as a Black person, it made me feel more in love with my culture.
I love that.
But not to get off topic, what were some intrusive thoughts that you had to let go of to do what you do today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say self-doubt is always a huge one. And it's the idea that I actually have a lot of, I'm pretty introverted, and so I have a lot of anxiety when I go up and approach people and ask them if they want to be on a TikTok and if I can, feed them. It's just, there's no easy way of asking that question. But it's gotten a lot easier as the support from people all over. It's funny because when you hit over 100,000 followers, I'm now like at almost 1 million, which makes things even more easier. But when I didn't have that, it was hard to convince people, right? So I think that was one of the biggest hurdles that I've gone through. But I think now I have the reverse problem where I now have a huge following, and now I have to be very careful about what type of content I put out there, because it means so much to people. And so there's a lot of pressure to create good content and to send a positive message out to the world. And so it's kind of, now I have the reverse problem with that.
And how are you coping with that? How are you dealing with that?
I think it's interesting. I think for a while I was stressing out about it, but then I realized that I think for me it's a creative outlet from a cooking and a filming perspective, and so I just wanted to make sure that I kept having fun and I didn't take it too seriously, but I also wanted to make sure that I realized that I was telling people stories, and I think that my focus was always on the people who I interview and making sure that their story came through, but through the lens of me filming and me cooking and having fun at it. And so I put a lot of emphasis on the person that I interview. And so that's how I guess, deal with kind of like the pressure of having a big platform.
That's honestly a problem that I think all creatives kind of go through, and it's really tough because when you start going up and you receive more comments and there's more critiques that you didn't ask for. But like, people came for you, they came for that good genuine energy that you have, they came for the fun times that you were having in the beginning. So I hope that you can stay true to that on your TikTok journey and kind of ignore what everybody else has going on, because the truth is, you got the sauce.
Thank you.
You got the sauce that's bringing the flies in. So yeah, you know what to do next. So don't let anybody sway you on how to move. You've got this.
I appreciate that.
And what process do you go through to make your videos?
Yeah, I'll kind of lay out the whole thing. So usually I start out with, trying to find someone to cook for. And so I just go to Central Park or go to a common place, and I try to find someone who looks interesting, or they're wearing something cool, or it seems like they're welcoming and they want to be talked to. And so I approach them, I give them my spiel. If they say yes, we meet back at a shared location at a shared time. And then I go home frantically, research the recipe, buy all the ingredients, cook the food, film, and then I package the food, and then I meet them back up, and then we film the second part, which is them eating it. And then more recently, I've actually started to kind of have a longer conversation with them, so it almost turns into like a shared meal now. Whereas before I just kind of like taped their reaction and left, because I wanted to learn more about them and who they are. And then I go home, I clean, and then it all starts back over again.
Do you do this all, like this whole process, do you do this all in one day?
Oh no, some take some of it takes over the period of 1 to 2 weeks. Some of them I do actually do in one day, especially if the person I'm interviewing has a tight time constraint. So it all just depends on the person that I'm interviewing.
I've noticed that you were having longer conversations, and I also noticed that like you were putting like little blurbs on your plates when you give them
Yeah,
out, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. So you got your little conversation starter up there.
yeah, exactly.
Did you expect the response that you got?
Oh my gosh, no. It's actually really funny because when I started the account, my my goal was if I can get 10,000 followers by the end of the year, I'd be like, oh my god, I hit my goal. But I did that in like a week, which was crazy. And yeah, I did not. Yeah, I didn't think anyone would be interested in watching it. So it's just it's really cool that's not the case.
And have you noticed any butterfly effects from your TikTok page or your TikTok videos?
What do you mean by butterfly effects?
Okay, so usually when we do something, other people will emulate it. I guess when I said butterfly effect, I just wanted it to say it nicely. Have you seen anybody emulating the work that you do?
Oh, okay. It's actually interesting. I think when like 2 weeks ago, two people actually reached out and said they love the content. They want to do like a similar type of format, and if I would be okay with it. And I think I was like, well, this is my content. But at the end of the day, I was like, I think the world needs more wholesome content. And so if they have a good way of approaching it and doing it, like I don't care, I don't mind. And I think it's actually better that there are more people who are doing this. But the interesting thing is I haven't seen anyone, or like the few people that follow, I haven't seen them create anything. And so I guess to your question, no, I haven't seen anyone do it. But I think there are other parts of butterfly effect that I think is interesting, where people who watch it, they feel like great feelings similar to how you felt. And I get these incredible emails from people of how looking at people's faces reminded them of their mom, and like how their mom passed away, and how they love the feelings that my video gives them. So I think there's a lot of positive butterfly effects outside of someone trying to copy the style of how I film. So yeah, it's been super interesting.
Would you mind reading us one of like your most touching emails that you got, or just one that just made you swell up?
Yeah, let me pull it up actually.
And I understand you wanting to protect your work, but kudos to those people for reaching out, because so many people there these days, they just take your work and just run with it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I was surprised that they reached out before they did it.
I know, me too. Okay, so there's this one from someone named Chris. He said, my Thai mother passed in 2020 and I miss her. Your videos remind me of all the times I sat with her and watched her cook, and then we'd share a meal and laugh. Seeing you make food for others reminded me of that. Unfortunately, it's not until our loved ones are gone that we begin to not regret writing down the recipes that are made without written recipes. My mom would make a bowl of garlic pork with bacon grease. I remember the seasonings were white pepper and garlic powder. She would add soy sauce. Then it'd be put in a bowl of the juices from the meat. We'd sit in the kitchen, eat it piece by piece with sticky rice. I want to thank you for reminding me of such a wonderful memory of my mom. I hope all of this reaches you and you get a chance to share a similar meal with close friends, eating with nothing but your hands and laughing at the memories you'll make. And so that's just super powerful that someone spent all that time to write this email.
Nice people, they're everywhere, but for some reason, we stop ourselves from doing these nice things. And
Yeah.
I just see you doing this, and it just warms my heart. So, man, I'm just so happy. Like, this is how I want to spend my days, just like talking to amazing people like you. So, all right,
amazing.
I'm gonna try not to oversaturate you with compliments,
Yeah.
just in case you don't like those.
I'm gonna stay humble.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. All right. Let's move on. I think you already answered what was all your goals with your videos, right?
Yeah.
I think you answered that. And what do your parents think about what you're doing?
It's really funny because I grew up with parents, like I said, who are in the restaurant industry, and they actually never wanted me to go into culinary restaurant work because they always saw it as something that immigrants did, and they always made sure that my brother and I got a good education and that we went off to be lawyers, doctors, or work in tech. And so they never really wanted me to go into food, basically. But I had always found myself going back to cooking and going back to work with restaurants. And so I told them actually 2 weeks ago, and I was actually really afraid of telling them because I wasn't sure how they'd take it. But they at the end was like, "Do you still have your day job?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, great. Keep doing what you're doing." But and then as my account grew, they're like, "Wow, this is actually becoming kind of a thing," and so they're pretty happy and proud about it.
I'm so glad that ended up working out for you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I like how you record your videos. It feels it's got a documentary style with it, because you take us on a journey with you, and although we don't get like all the like fine details of like how you did everything and how you put it together, just watching you whip it up on the stove and use all these different types of ingredients that wouldn't normally be in the traditional American kitchen, it's exciting. And I see you as kind of like a Anthony Bourdain, or what was that? What was the guy who he does like the strange eats?
Oh, Andrew Zimmerman, yeah.
Yes, Andrew Zimmerman. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so funny because Anthony Bourdain is a huge idol of mine, and what's crazy is I live like almost 1 block away from his old restaurant, and I was like, wow, maybe there's some magical thing there that's happening. But yeah, he's an incredible person.
Yes. Rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain. I used to watch that show with my parents, like just sitting on the couch, and I'm not when he passed, like my dad just started crying, and like even I was emotional too, because like we watched this guy on TV, like he's just so loving and just so kind. He travels the world, like he just gave people good feelings, and the fact that he went, it was just sad for us.
Yeah. There's a really amazing documentary about him on HBO called Roadrunner, about like his life and kind of like the theories around what happened. And it's pretty sad. I think he was a very powerful storyteller, and I think he felt a lot of the things that he seen and saw throughout the world. And yeah, I'd encourage people to watch it and to kind of get a better understanding of his life and his perspective on his work.
I'll definitely give that a watch. What else should we be on the lookout for from you? Yeah.
Well, I am working on a cookbook. It's so funny because everyone asks for recipes, and I don't spend enough time like being thoughtful about the recipes. So I'm gonna make a cookbook, and I'm gonna spend a lot of time and energy making sure that the recipes are good, because like I said, I a lot of times I cook with my intuition. And so the book will be inspired by the people that I meet, and it will be inspired by the adventures and the stories and the meal that we'll share. And so I'm thinking of launching it early next year. And so be on the lookout for that.
I will definitely be on the lookout for that.
Thank you.
Do you foresee yourself possibly going into TV? Maybe maybe a streaming service?
I would love that. So if anyone out there that's watching or listening to this, hit me up. It's actually funny. I won't give out too many details, but I might be getting casted for a cooking competition, but stay tuned to learn more.
Is it chopped?
I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say anything because I don't want to jinx it. I'm in like the final casting for one of them, so we'll see.
Okay. I'm not gonna ask any more questions. I'm super excited though, but please let me know when you get your answer. But okay, if you had to pick a streaming service or a TV, like Food Network or something like that, not specifically Food Network, like any channel. What would be your ideal channel to be on?
Oh my God, that's such a good question.
And what style would you do?
I'm not sure what channel I'll be on, but I want to make sure I keep it. Actually, I really love interviewing people and I love learning about people, and I love that my content, for the most part, is not about me, but about the other person. And so if I can do something that's a mix between Oprah and Anthony Bourdain, that would be incredible. And so I don't know what that looks like, but it would have to. It does sound cool. It would have to be people, food, and culture, and the intersectionality of the three as a food ethnographer, of course.
Okay. Well, I want you to know, think about Netflix. They're stepping their game up with their shows. Like if a show it goes on Netflix and it's got a documentary style, like definitely watching it.
Thank you.
How can we support you in what you do?
I would say just watching the video and sharing it with your, friends and family. That's the most powerful thing, right? And then also having a conversation about it, right? If you don't know anything about Nepali food, have a conversation of like, oh wow, they use black eyed peas, like we use that for some of our cuisine. Or but yeah, I think the best way to support it is just to watch the videos, have a conversation, and enjoy it. And I try not to take it too seriously, and so that's kind of my and sign up to get the book if you want.
Yes, I will put that link in the caption to this video. But yeah, I think that's actually all of my questions. Did you want to say anything else?
No, that's it. Whoever stayed on to listen to all of this, really appreciate the time and attention.
Yes, same here. Thank you so much, Yiming Lin, for joining us and sharing your experience. It has been so heartwarming to just get the chance to speak with you. And yeah, I love my job.
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening as well. Please check the link in the bio so that you can join the waitlist to get Literally Starving's cookbook. And also make sure you follow him on TikTok for more wholesome content. And yeah, have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye everyone.